and welcome back to my channel. This is going to be another attempting to finish series I am in the middle of vlog. I am trying to do one of these a month because if you guys have not seen the video that I posted in February, I will link it up there. Just be warned, it is 40 minutes. It is quite a long haul. But in that video, I go over every single series I am in the middle of, the ones that I have in progress, the ones that I'm caught up on, the ones that I own a book of, which means I will start them. Lord knows if I will, continue, but I kind of count them as part of the problem because I own the book, which means I will at some point to read it and then be in the middle of that series. So I am trying to get caught up in some fashion because I believe I'm in the middle of, I think 20 to 25 series. I'm caught up on 20 to 25 series. I have another 50 I haven't started. I will pop the stats up right there because they have changed a little bit since that video where I went over everything. But in this video, I am happy to say that we are going to be finishing 2 series I'm in the middle of, which is a big win. I am, for the most part, kind of running out of books that will complete a series for me. And so I'm going to probably have to start doing a couple where we're reading book, 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 or something like that in an effort to just get myself a little bit caught up so that we can get back to finishing some series. But for this video, we will be finishing 2, like I said. The first series we're going to be finishing in this video is Twisted by Miss Ana Huang. I'm super excited about this because this is book 4 in the series and it follows Stella and Christian. I have gotten lots of glimpses of Christian. I actually started my Ana Huang reading journey with King of Wrath, and he kind of features in there because he's one of Dante's friends / associates. So I am, thrilled to finally get his story. And so we will probably end up reading this first because my last video was very fantasy and romantasy heavy. And so I kind of would like a little bit of a palate cleanser. So we will be starting with this book. And then I am super excited about this. Our second pick is A Curse Carved in Bone by Miss Danielle L. Jensen. Now, did I love the first book in A Saga of the Unfated as much as I love the Bridge Kingdom series? No, and I think it rightfully got some mixed reviews from people, but I enjoyed it. It was kind of a 3 to 3.5 star read for me, but that doesn't change the fact that I had a good time. So I am excited to continue on with this book, and I'm excited to say that it has arrived early. Release date isn't until, I believe, May 13th. So I am lucky, and my the place I ordered it from shipped it out early. And so I have my happy little mitts on this. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pick up Twisted Lies, and I will catch up with you when I have something to say about this book. But like I said, I am very happy that this episode is going to be completing these 2 series for me. I am happy to report that I am about 60% of the way through Twisted Lies, and I think this might end up being my favorite of the series. I know I said that about Twisted Hate, but that book kind of went off the rails in the 3rd act, so, take that as you will if you want to see my thoughts and feelings on that book. It was in a pretty recent video, but this one, the 2 of them kind of know each other in passing prior to the events of this book, especially because Stella and Jules, the FMC from the 3rd book, the 2 of them moved into one of his apartment buildings at a highly discounted rate. And you kind of, in Twisted Hate, get hints that he may or may not have a thing for Stella because he's kind of eyeballing her when he agrees to the lower rent rate, which is very unusual for him because he's very, cold-hearted, cutthroat, and a businessman. So for him to give, a discounted rate is a little weird. And, we kind of get the vibes that it is because of Stella. But at this point in kind of the timeline, Jules has moved out to live with her boyfriend, Josh. And so Stella approaches him to tell him, hey, I can't continue to afford this rent. And he discounts her rent even further so she can afford it on her own in exchange for her watering his plants. So That's kind of where the two of them stand at the start of this book. We kind of get hints that, he might have more going on for her than we realize, but, we're not quite there yet. Even halfway into this book, we're still not getting the full story on why he seems to know more about her than she does about him. But the two of them end up setting up a fake dating scenario because she is a influencer who works in fashion. So her main 9-to-5 job is for a fashion magazine, but she is also a fairly popular social media influencer. Her account has been hovering under 1 million followers for quite some time, but she is, been invited to potentially become a spokesperson for a very, very popular brand. And while she's at this dinner, she ends up missing several calls from her boss at the magazine, and her boss uses that as an excuse to fire her. And now her finances are kind of in jeopardy because her account has kind of become stagnant, and then she's lost her main income. And this has especially put a strain on her finances because she pays for her childhood nanny's memory home care. So her childhood nanny was kind of her big parent figure growing up. And Mara ended up with Alzheimer's and had to be moved into a care home, especially because she no longer has any family. And Stella has been paying for a very, very high-end home. And so her losing her 9-to-5 has kind of put Mara's job in jeopardy. And so this big brand deal that she's trying to close would pay for that care and then some. But because her account has been stagnant for a while, she doesn't feel like she is in the running. And her manager suggests that, if she became one half of a couple, that she would instantly become more popular, especially because she has not dated in the past. And so this would be a huge deal if she ends up with a boyfriend. And, she test drives a couple guys that she knows and it doesn't quite work out. And Christian clearly has less than positive feelings about her dating men, that are not him. And he volunteers himself. And initially he, says, oh, if you show up on my arm at all these events, then I will pay for Mara's care. And Stella feels already a little too indebted to him. So instead they decide to come up with a mutually beneficial arrangement. She is his date to all these charity events and other stuff he has to go to. And he is her, boyfriend online. But, the caveat of this is, of course, there's no physical intimacy. They don't fall in love with each other, yada, yada, yada. And obviously we all know where that goes, but she kind of ends up, so prior to the event of this book, she has had a stalker, and the stalker kind of lapsed in their activity for about 2 years. But when Stella announces that she's dating on her Instagram, he resurfaces. And so Christian, who is CEO of a security company, decides to make her physical safety his priority. And eventually it escalates to the point where Stella is forced to move in with Christian. So now we are under one roof, not necessarily the one bed trope, but the under one roof trope. And so the two of them are trying to navigate having a fake relationship with somewhat, real physical attraction to each other. And, he's attending her shoots to physically protect her because she can't have a bodyguard hovering around her. And it's just, we always love a good push and pull fake dating scenario. And I am thoroughly entertained by these two and their relationship. Now that I am getting Stella's perspective, I've become much more invested in her as a character. And of course, I was always invested in Christian. But as far as their issues and the reason that they are, kind of doing the whole will we, won't we dance, like I said, she hasn't really been dating with, not that she's not interested, but she just hasn't kind of felt like she's had the time, energy, or interest to do so. And he doesn't believe in love. He's very jaded. And I'm kind of getting vibes that it has to do with his parents' relationship. So, and not like in a bad way, it seems like his parents were very, very much in love, but it seems like it might have been the type of love that meant that Christian as a kid got pushed to the side. And then Stella seems to have, I think, how would I describe it? Anxiety and panic attacks surrounding her self-worth. So, and that seems to kind of be driven by how her family has treated her. So I have a feeling that all of those issues will come into play, plus the stalker, when it comes to our third act conflict. But this is, of course, a good old Anna Huang story where it's a bit outlandish, a little bit crazy. The improbable happens, but I am thoroughly, thoroughly enjoying this. And as long as the third act conflict does not derail my feelings about this book, this could very well be very highly rated. So I will catch up with you when I am done with this book, but I am, so far along for the ride and on tenterhooks. So I have officially finished the last book in the Twisted series, and I can check that series off my tracker, but I enjoyed this book so much. I know I was saying in my, halfway check-in that I was a little worried it would go off the rails like Twisted Hate did, but it didn't. I enjoyed everything. The third act conflict was somewhat unexpected. I kind of thought that our issues would come from other areas, and I don't know, maybe this book is a 5-star. I'm not 100% on that, so I'm going to sit on it a little bit longer, and I will let you know at the end of this video what I end up rating it. But I think it might be a 5-star. Like, I enjoyed it. Was it like, the deepest, most well-written thing in the world? No, but like, I had a great time. So with that being said, this book, I really, really enjoyed Stella and Christian together. I enjoyed watching their relationship blossom and, them finding their way in the world, especially Stella, because she's kind of felt very stagnant in her career. And when she is fired from her job at DC Style, she really struggles to initially get her feet back under her and figure out what she wants to do with her life. If she wants to look for another office job, or if she wants to make her influencing her full-time job, in which case she feels she might have to sell out a little bit on brand deals because she's tried to only take brand deals that she feels strongly about. Or, if she starts her fashion line, which is what she's always wanted to do, but her family has kind of planted seeds of doubt in her head about how fashion design is not like a credible and a good career path to follow. So it was really wonderful to watch her blossom and also to watch Christian support her on her terms. Like, she kind of makes conditions that he can't sink money into her new business. But otherwise he's very, very supportive of her. And I think it's super sweet. Like I said, I didn't see the third act conflict coming. And to be honest, I think both of them handled it really, really well for what it was. It was kind of one of those things where logically you kind of understand it, but emotionally you're still hurt, at least for Stella. And I think it very well aligns with both their characters, their histories and their issues, which is what I kind of expected. Especially Christian's history with his family and not being willing to talk about his personal life. That's kind of what I expected more of the third act conflict to come from. Not that didn't impact it, but it was not the main focal point. And so I was kind of surprised by that. I will say the one thing that I was kind of surprised by was the identity reveal for Stella's stalker. I kind of expected somebody who was a little bit more prevalent in the storyline. That way it would kind of end up a little bit more insidious that he was doing all these things. So I was a little shocked when that reveal happened, but I'm not mad about it. It's not like they pulled somebody out of nowhere, but it also wasn't, as like he just wasn't as important as I thought he would be. But with that being said, I really enjoyed this book. I am teetering on giving it 5 stars, but I don't know. There's a part of me that feels odd about giving it 5 stars when it's just so like outlandish in its plot. But, at the end of the day, it's about my enjoyment. So maybe 5 stars is right. And so that brings us to the second book in this video, which is A Curse Carved in Bone. This is the sequel to A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. As I said before, that book kind of received very mixed reviews, but I enjoyed it. So I am happy to be getting my hands on this early and get started. But about A Fate Inked in Blood, kind of the premise of that book. In this world, which is based on Norse mythology, if a god is participating or like present at the point of conception, the baby will have like a drop of the god's blood and therefore be able to manifest some sort of unique power. And they are considered the unfated because the Norns, or the fates in this world, cannot control their destiny. So Freya and Bjorn, which are our 2 main characters in this storyline, are 2 of the unfated. Freya from birth was told that she wasn't supposed to be using her powers, and the reason why is because there is a prophecy that specifies that one who is gifted with her goddess's blood, or her goddess mother's blood, would be the tool that someone could use to unite the entirety of Scotland under one banner, and for that ruler to then become king. So basically, whoever controls her and her destiny will become king of all of, Viking territory. And so she was told at a very young age not to use her powers, and very few people are aware that she was gifted by this goddess. And when we first meet her in A Fate Inked in Blood, she's married to a piece of crap. He's abusive, he is manipulative, he is crappy, and when she stands up to him one too many times, he decides to sell her downriver to the, not literally, but proverbially, he decides to sell her out to the local jarl named Snorri, and Snorri fetches her and essentially, kidnaps her, but more like blackmails her to come with him. He threatens the lives of those she cares about, and so she acquiesces to come with him back to his hometown and help him unite all the, other jarldoms under his rule. And she is deeply unhappy with this. She feels that she's kind of basically going from one captor to another captor, but she feels that she doesn't have a choice, even though her family has treated her very, very poorly, especially, they kind of just used her. They sold her to her first husband, so to speak. And so I was kind of frustrated in the first book that she did not feel that she felt so inclined to protect them, that she didn't feel that she could stand up for herself. But obviously, her being bound to her second husband, because Snorri decides to marry her in order to keep her under his thumb, comes in conflict with her personal desires, because she feels very strongly for Bjorn, which is Snorri's biological son. She and Bjorn have an immediate attraction to each other, but now that she is married to his father, that kind of all complicates things. Even though her relationship with Snorri isn't physical, she's managed to kind of evade that aspect of marriage. It doesn't change the fact that she is obviously wed to him, and so it kind of makes things very weird and complicated. And so she's kind of battling her own, her own morals and values, because she would like to protect the people of Scotland, protect her people, but not in the way that Snorri has in mind, especially because Snorri would like to wage war against the other Viking kingdoms. So she's kind of faced with the idea that she can protect her people by participating, but also she will wreak untold amounts of death and destruction if she participates. So in classic Danielle L. Jensen fashion, we end the first book with a betrayal, because this is just how these things go. And so I am excited to see where this goes, if these two can work out their differences, if where she is going to end up is any friendlier and less manipulative than her previous setting. So we shall see. But like I said, I am excited to get started on this book. So that is what we shall do. So I am about 2/3 of the way through A Curse Carved in Bone, and I will say I'm feeling very similarly about this book as I did to the first book. If I read the first book long before I started reading books, so I don't know what I would give it today. Maybe like a 3.5, somewhere in there. And I think this is where this is the range this book is currently in. And one of the biggest reasons is I feel like the plot is somewhat predictable. I don't know if it's because I've read, Danielle L. Jensen's backlist at this point, or if, just in general, this duology is predictable. I don't feel this way about the Break Kingdom series, so I don't think it's due to the volume of her writing I've read. But it's just kind of predictable about what's happening and where things are going and yada yada. I will say, I also somewhat struggled with Freya and Bjorn's relationship in the first book because it felt very insta-love and insta-lust and then insta-love. And there's kind of a level of there because she is married to his dad, even though, they don't have a physical relationship and it's very much a political alliance. It's still a little weird that you have the hots for your husband's son, even, though he's your husband in name only. But while that's not as much of a factor in this book, I will say that their relationship trajectory is still somewhat bothering me. As I said, there was kind of a betrayal between the two of them at the end of the first book, and now they're kind of trying to work through that in this book, and I'm going to keep this as vague as possible. One of them kind of forces the other person's hand to commit an act that they have been saying all book that they will not do. And then right after that, there seems to be absolutely no consequences for the person who forced the other person. It was other circumstances that happened post issue just wiped the slate clean. And we're not going to talk about, and we're not going to address the fact that, you just did something that you and I both swore would never happen. So it's just, I am enjoying it, and I am enjoying the fact that it's based off of Norse mythology. I feel like we don't get a lot of books that have that kind of background material to it. And, I am enjoying where this book is going. There was one twist that surprised me, so not 100% predictable, just mostly. And I'm also kind of enjoying the animal side characters we're getting in this book. There is an eagle or a falcon that is kind of serving as someone else's eyes. And there are 2 wolves who seem to have taken a liking to Freya over their owner, the person who has their loyalty. So I'm very much kind of enjoying her animal compatriots, so to speak. I will say I am starting to get more attached to some of the side characters in this book. I was not, with the exception of one side character who has unfortunately met their demise in the first book, I have not been particularly attached to the side characters. So I was stressing a little bit for one of them and the one of the conflicts that's happened in this book. So I am invested enough that I care about the fates of the side characters. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this book, but let's just say that I am feeling pretty similarly about it as to how I felt about A Fate in Blood. I have finished A Curse Carved in Bone, and I think this might be a 4-star read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it had a lot more settings and twists and turns, and I will say that the ending was a lot less predictable than the first book, which was one of my main complaints. So honestly, I think this is a 4-star read for me. I enjoyed Freya and Bjorn's like story arc and where they ended up. And I feel like those who needed to get their just desserts did, which is always satisfactory. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I realize that it might not be everybody's cup of tea. And I will say I did notice some grammatical errors, some punctuation missing, some incorrect pronouns. But other than that, it was fun. It was enjoyable. I still think that Danielle L. Jensen is an auto-buy author for me at this point. So, I am happy that I have, read this and ticked off the box of finishing A Saga of the Unfated. So, with that being said, like I said, this was a 4-star read, and I think honestly I am going to give Twisted Lies a 5-star rating, which, this book is not, top shelf quality, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I'm going to give it 5 stars and, be happy with having read it. So with those 2 books being read, I have officially finished both the Twisted series and the Saga of the Unfated. And I am happy to say that those can now be moved to my done column in my series tracker. But if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to stick around for a while, please subscribe. Either way, I appreciate you joining me today. Bye!